Impetus, episode 114. The show kicks off with a replay from earlier in the week. Images of Johnny Fabuloso's busted mouth is seen from last week's match with Greg Williams. Then, images are shown of Johnny in a nearby hospital after the title match. Aaron explains that Johnny's molars were cracked as a result of being forced into the exposed steel and, as a result, must not only get a filling, but must wear braces. This must only provide a setback for his modelling career. The show then transitions to a backstage interview in the interview area with Terri Delighta. Asked for an update on Johnny's health, Terri is furious with Greg Williams and can't believe what the Rebel has done to his client. Terri states that Greg may have created physical damage to Johnny, but it's mental as well, not to mention the setback that it has caused to his career. Johnny, for these reasons, cannot be here tonight. If last week's deplorable events didn't happen, he knows Johnny would have wanted to send a message to Greg with their title match coming up in 2 weeks. As a result, Terri will send that message. Tonight, Greg Williams will get his ass pounded, and not in a good way, because Terri Delighta challenges him to a match tonight. Terri leaves in fury with the interviewer and commentators in shock as Impetus heads in to its intro. Tonight, Greg Williams versus Terri Delighta? The stylist wants revenge. Also, Jade Williams and Jacinta reunite. Former friends and business partners reunite as they face Kelly Sales and Jackie Sky. And Wazzy D, Gary Federline, Josh Alba and Dylan Dark will compete in a fatal four-way elimination match to determine the new #1 contender to the Coast to Coast Championship. That and so much more tonight. Impetus starts with the Firewall. Enter El Fuego. Through the fire and the flames, El Fuego are lit up. They bring back the Firewall only for another special edition. See, they won't be finding out who their future challengers will be, as that will be decided next week. As for tonight, El Fuego are facing Chris Vortex. With Chris struggling to find a partner that sticks around, the Luchadors thought that they'd use their Firewall to determine Vortex's partner. The virtual wheel spins, moving past a trash bag, Steven Dreadful, Aaron Cutler, a garbage disposal truck, a celery stick, and many other silly items that El Fuego laugh at. However, not seen until the very end, the Firewall lands on Chris Vortex's own veggie cart. The partner has been chosen. El Fuego welcome Chris's tag team partner, the return of the veggie cart. Enter the veggie cart. The cart is pushed out on stage by production crew. Sitting atop the stage, this may be Vortex's oddest teammate yet. Enter Chris Vortex. The vegan enters in a foul mood, irritated with El Fuego's silliness. He asks if they think that this is funny. Chris has been picked on for being a vegan, the weak link of the quota, and now picked on for his lack of partnership. He is sick of it. That is why tonight will change everything. Chris doesn't need a stupid virtual wheel to decide his new partner, as he has already found one. Chris introduces his new key to success. Enter a security guard. A giant security guard enters, jacked up and focused. Chris claims that we may recognize this man. He is the security guard that has helped him over the last few weeks, and a man who he has developed a great acquaintance with. Tonight, Chris and the security guard will become best friends as they defeat El Fuego and solidify themselves as the next greatest tag team with no weak link, only dominance. Match 1. El Fuego versus Chris Vortex and a security guard? Chris surprises all by dominating the match by himself, all with his giant partner supporting him on the outside. Chris's confidence costs him though, as El Fuego take advantage and begin their tag team excellence. With Chris in trouble, he hopes for a tag and gets it. The giant storms in the ring and obliterates the luchadors. However, in the heat of his dominance, the security guard notices a fight breaking out between the fans behind the commentary desk. The unnamed partner decides to leave the ring, prioritizing the safety of the fans over the safety of his own partner. The official counts to 10 as the guard escorts the brawling fans out of the arena. Winners, El Fuego by countout. With the guard seen dragging the rioting fans out of the building, it leaves Chris to recover and complain, asking where his giant friend has gone. Realizing what's behind him, Chris prays as he turns around into a fireball from El Fuego. The champions exit with laughter, with Chris knocked out with a sad face. After the comedy, we then transition to the backstage boiler room featuring Skar and Susan for a very serious scene. Susan is trying to speak to her brother as he madly paces back and forth. Skar knows Dominick is up to something and refuses to allow the Tree Man to make an impact in their lives again. Susan stops him, asking if her brother has even stopped to think that maybe, just maybe, Dominick is trying to help them. Skar stops and can't believe what he is hearing. He can't believe she's falling for it. Susan yells, telling Skar to just shut up and listen. She remembers the riverbank. She remembers the shack in the middle of the woods in the forest and remembers the pain and suffering he caused them. What she's trying to tell Skar is that was Dominick. But since the Tree Man returned at the ritual 2 weeks ago, she has seen nothing but Tyler Rose. The same troubled kid that she fell for all those years ago. The same Tyler Rose who simply wanted to fit in. With Skar still unconvinced, she tells him that maybe, just maybe, he's been telling the truth. Maybe he simply just wants a family. Skar asks how she knows. Susan quickly announces that she knows because she spoke to him. Skar is shocked with what he's heard. He begins to yell at Susan, only for the sister to fire back at her brother. She tells him that regardless of what he believes, it's a fact that immunity kept getting one up on them, and it's only a matter of time before they get what they want. Whether Skar likes to admit it or not, Dominick saved her, him, and them from the ritual, and took 2 beatings last week because of it. Maybe Skar should trust Dominick because of that fact. Skar has no intention of trusting that good-for-nothing bastard. Susan then approaches her brother with sympathy. If he can't trust Dominick, she asks him to trust her. Trust her on this. Skar thinks and tells Susan that he simply needs time to process all of this. It's too much for him to handle. Susan leaves her brother in peace, but tells him not to take too long, as her match with Angel is clearly going to get out of hand in just a matter of time. Susan leaves, allowing Skar to exhale in stress. However, as the scene seems to be closing, Skar's mouth is covered by a cloth, with the monster being dragged into the darkness. Something, or someone, has Skar. After a commercial break, tonight's episode of Impetus is labelled as Ladies' Night, because Angel takes on Susan. However, who has taken Skar? Also, Jade Williams and Jacinta take on Kelly Sales and Jackie Sky. However, up next, Daria versus Cortni. Before we witness that contest, we see a backstage segment in the hallway featuring El Fuego and Jillian Day. El Fuego are polishing their titles after their victory from moments ago, until they are interrupted by a happy and cocky Jillian. She sarcastically congratulates the Luchadors for beating a lame team involving Chris Vortex and a simple security guard, and mocks their status as champions. She also likes how they conveniently have forgotten about Matariamas, her new team she acquired last week. You know, right after El Fuego got their balls kicked in. She can't wait to see her team replace El Fuego in every way, including their status as tag team champions. After all, she can make that possible, as she is the maker of champions. Listio and Sincere are then seen with dumb-looking faces, clearly bored of Jillian's speech. Licio tells Jillian that she should talk to Immunity. Jillian asks why. She already has a tag team. Licio claims that she is exactly what they're looking for. You see, they're looking for a cure, not to weakness, but to insomnia. Jillian is definitely the cure to that disease because she puts everyone to sleep with her boring-ass words. With Jillian insulted, El Fuego welcomed a challenge from their impersonators. Maybe the next time Matariamas rock up, they can develop their own personality rather than stealing El Fuego's. Better yet, maybe they can develop their own balls rather than kick El Fuego's. Jillian reminds El Fuego of their Firewall next week, in which will determine the next challenges for their titles. She wants to leave them with a message that she developed herself. El Fuego are then attacked by Matariamas. With security and officials ordering them to leave the scene, El Fuego have been decked once again by their lookalikes. Enter Cortni. Hoping to finally gain a victory over the champion, Cortni's determination is barely seen as the commentators speak about Daria. Apparently, Akira made some controversial statements over the past week and has been advised not to appear on tonight's show because of them. A video from Akira's Instagram page is shown from earlier today. Located in her house, she speaks while applying makeup with her hair half done. She talks to the critics that she has encountered on social media lately, telling all that have formed this negative opinion to just chill out. So what? She added a bit of makeup to her style. Big deal. When she said she wasn't a huge advocate for cosmetics, she didn't mean she never wears makeup. I mean, come on, get over yourselves. She continues to be over-defensive, claiming that those who are so offended by her putting on a bit of eyeliner need to get the f*** over themselves. Stop trying to make something out of nothing. With Cortni seen warming up in the ring, the commentators wonder what the champion must think. Enter Daria. As the champion enters, she notices a young female in the front row. The little girl is dressed as Akira, with her hair tied back, much like her. Match 2. Cortni vs. Daria. Cortni gets easily reversed throughout the match. With Daria showcasing her dominance as champion, she prepares for the Harlem Hangover, only for Cortni to wisely roll out of the ring. As her opponent recovers, Daria hopes to climb out of the ring, only to be stopped by a worried official. The referee wants to check on Cortni, only for Daria to shove the official out of the way in hopes to grab her opponent. With the official pushed to the side and Daria hanging over the second rope, Cortni takes advantage and hits Daria clean in the head with a kendo stick grabbed from under the ring. The official sees none of it. However, he does see Cortni climb up the top rope and hit a molly-go-round on the champion, claiming a dirty and surprising win. Winner, Cortni. Cortni has used her hardcore desires to obtain a victory over the women's champion. Daria is in pain while Cortni exits with delight. Looking at the aforementioned young girl in the front row, doubt is now placed in the champ's mind, with Hunt You Down just 2 weeks away. The show then transitions to a backstage locker room segment with the Essentials. Josh is boxing with Freddy, warming up for his huge fatal four-way match later tonight. Josh stops to catch his breath, with Freddy giving his partner some huge confidence, roasting the other opponents. Josh is going to whip Dylan Dark's ass tonight and send him back to his white van where all his little kids are trapped. He's going to kick Wazzy's balls so hard that his unborn children are going to behave. And before Josh puts a whooping on Gary Federline, Freddy wants to reveal a little secret about him. With Josh now interested, Freddy reveals that Gary has got more pee-pee skin than pee-pee itself. With Josh laughing, Freddy confirms that, after flirting with Gary's wife, she told him all of his dirty secrets. The Essentials laugh away until being confronted by the Killers of the Revolution. With Gary and Steven by his side, CJ asks his partners if they remember the Essentials, referring to them as the wannabe KOTR. He tells Freddy that he should stop the jibber-jabber and should probably warm up much like his partner. The reason? Steven Dreadful is challenging him to a match tonight. With Freddy gladly accepting, CJ claims that the Essentials are accepting a double disappointment tonight, as not only will Steven Dreadful be victorious, but so too will Gary Federline, becoming the new #1 contender to the Coast to Coast title. In fact, it is Gary's personal goal tonight to eliminate Josh in that contest. The Essentials then bite back, asking if Gary and Steven are allowed to speak or if they have to get CJ's balls out of their mouths first. Freddy claims that after his win tonight, he's going to make Steven look like the Chris Vortex of KOTR. Josh chuckles and believes that after eliminating Gary and becoming the next challenger, he's going to make Gary Federline look like the Gary Federline of K-Fed 2.0. CJ holds his angered partners back, telling them that they don't fight for free, they fight for money. Big money. CJ escorts his team out with the Essentials confident. Enter Kelly Sales. A replay from 3 weeks ago is shown. The interaction between Jade Williams and Jacinta, with Jacinta hoping to align herself with Jade. With the Giant thinking about it, the answer was revealed last week. Enter Jackie Sky. A replay from last week is shown during this entrance. Jade is seen with Jacinta, accepting her deal. However, Jade only accepts if she can have Jacinta as her employee, making sure her career is controlled by her and her alone. With this alliance set up, enter Jade Williams and Jacinta. Entering together with Jade's music, the Giant makes sure she walks in front of Jacinta, showing the hierarchy. Jacinta is secretly mad about this, but deals with her superior, for now. Match 3. Jade Williams and Jacinta versus Kelly Sales and Jackie Sky. With the heels beating down their opponents, they make a decent tag team yet again. With Jacinta in control, hoping to hit her tsunami finisher, Jade halts the match and demands a tag. Jacinta is reluctant, only for her boss to ask one last time. She demands a tag. The tag is then made, allowing Jade to hit her new post-detonation finisher, the powerbomb into an alley-oop, for the win. Winners, Jade Williams and Jacinta. After the match, Jade soaks up the victory for herself, flexing her muscles and showing the threat she still has in the women's division. With Jacinta gloating her win by standing on the turnbuckle, Jade shows her superiority by telling her employee to step down so that she can have that corner. Jacinta steps down and deals with the hierarchy yet again, hoping for it all to be worth it. Susan is then seen pacing with stress in the backstage hallway. She walks up and down, looking for something. She's looking for her brother. Much like 2 weeks ago, one sibling cannot find the other. With Susan walking on, hoping to find her brother, Cortni is seen in the distance, viewing Susan's hunt. She then walks into the immunity locker room in the background, all with Susan still stressing. Tonight, Angel versus Susan. Who has taken Skar? Also, Greg Williams versus Terri Delighta. The stylist has demanded revenge. However, up next, the #1 contender's fatal 4-way elimination match will take place. Wazzy D, Gary Federline, Josh Alba and Dylan Dark compete to become the next #1 contender to the Coast to Coast title. After a commercial break, the Hunt You Down pay-per-view is advertised. The World Impetus Championship is on the line as Greg Williams versus Johnny Fabuloso. Will Johnny even be able to compete with broken teeth? Also, the Women's Championship match sees Daria defend her title against Akira. And the Coast to Coast title is on the line as Warren Jaxon takes on, well, we're going to find that out right now. Enter Warren Jaxon. The Coast to Coast champion walks quickly to the ring and enters it, holding his title proudly. He waits as he wants to see his potential challengers enter before him. Enter Wazzy D. The usual upbeat gangster enters with disappointment, as we are reminded of the Barry the Bogan's situation and his departure from Impetus. The gangster stares at Warren in the middle of the ring. He then looks at what he believes should be his, the Coast to Coast title. Enter Dylan Dark with Mark Hamill and Jarvis Banks. Accompanied by his children, Dylan reaches the bottom of the ramp with Warren Jaxon angry. The champion wants to see his challenger compete without the help of his army. Dylan looks at Mark and Jarvis and sends them away, happy to play ball and happy to seem like a dominant father figure. Enter Josh Alba with Freddy Cornell. Entering with his supportive ally, Josh walks down the ramp with Freddy. The two stop and shake hands, happy to have Josh go this alone. As Freddy exits up the ramp, Josh is unable to finish his entrance as enter Gary Federline with CJ and Steven Dreadful. The Killers of the Revolution take the spotlight off the Essentials. With Freddy walking back, he gets shoulder blocked by Steven, heightening the tension for their match later tonight. With Gary entering the ring, Steven and CJ decide to take over the announce desk, commentating the match themselves. Warren stares at the four opponents and shows them what they're fighting for, the Coast to Coast title. Put aside all the differences, this is what this match is about. He then exits the ring and refuses to look back, throwing his title over his shoulder. Match 4, the number 1 contendership Fatal 4-Way Elimination match. Wazzy D versus Gary Federline versus Josh Alba versus Dylan Dark. CJ and Steven tell the world on the commentary desk that Gary Federline is an amazing talent and will win this match and make such a great Coast to Coast champion. CJ also talks about his business deal with Gary and Steven, reminding all that a percentage of their income goes to him as he builds them further up the card, promising them that one day they will become champions. With all men having fair offense throughout the match, Wazzy D picks up momentum as he pulls out a thong and whacks the heads of every opponent. Tributing his good friend Barry the Bogan, Wazzy puts the footwear back in his pocket and scales up to the top to deliver a Coast to Coast. As Wazzy flies through the air, he gets caught by a Dylan Dark spear. A pin should eliminate Wazzy, but Dylan is stopped by Josh Alba, who rolls the Emperor up, gaining a quick elimination. First elimination, Dylan Dark. Dylan kicks out inches too late and is shocked to have been eliminated. With Josh pushed to the outside by Gary Federline, he recovers on the outside to see Mark and Jarvis appear from under the ring. Prepared to attack Josh, Dylan exits the ring and decides to discipline his children. He doesn't want them to attack. The Condemnation exit with Mark and Jarvis being lectured by their eliminated father-like figure. The match continues between Gary and Josh. The two share great counters and sequences until the reappearance of Wazzy D and his double crossbody. Sitting both opponents in the corner, Wazzy wants to do a historic two-man Coast to Coast. He sets himself up on the top turnbuckle only to dive on the outside as he sees Steven Dreadful run from the commentary desk, trying to interfere. What would have been an amazing double Coast to Coast moment ends up badly for Wazzy as Steven dodges the dive, causing Wazzy to splat on the ground. With Wazzy in pain outside, the official checks on him, allowing Steven to get in the ring and hit Josh Alba illegally with the Arrival finisher. With Steven getting back to the commentary desk, acting as though nothing happened, the official counts the pin for Gary, eliminating Josh. Second elimination, Josh Alba. With Wazzy half conscious on the outside, Gary Federline is fairly fresh. He parades around the ring, realizing that he's pretty much won this match. With Wazzy climbing up the apron in dire straits, Gary prepares to dive on his remaining opponent. However, Wazzy alters his direction by attacking Steven Dreadful at the announce desk, stopping Gary's dive. CJ and the official try to stop the enraged Wazzy, only for the gangster to push them away. In the heat of his aggression, Wazzy gets stopped by Gary Federline, who throws him into the steel steps and hits him with the Fed Cred on the outside. Chucking the limp body back in the ring, Gary looks to pin his opponent, only for Wazzy to quickly roll him up, gaining the 1, 2, 3. Third elimination, Gary Federline. Winner, Wazzy D. CJ and Steven can't believe it. They go crazy at the commentary desk, abandoning their roles to complain with Gary outside the ring. As our original broadcasters regain their positions, they witness KOTR exit in fury. Warren Jaxon reappears on stage, raising his title and staring at a pained Wazzy D. It is now official. At Hunt You Down, the Coast to Coast title will be on the line as Warren Jaxon defends his title against the new challenger, Wazzy D. As we approach the scheduled match between Susan and Angel, we see Susan in a backstage hallway. She is still looking for her brother. Susan's stress has heightened. She yells and pleads for Skar's showing, but walks off with disappointment. Her match against Immunity's Angel is up next. After a commercial break, we see a promo package for Dominick Silver and his return. 2 weeks ago, Dominick Silver, the infamous stalker of Susan and childhood rival of Skar, returned. However, he came back not for vengeance, as it seems, but for family. Dominick was beaten down by Immunity in hopes to make amends with Skar, wanting to be a part of the family as a humble tree man. With Skar refusing to fall for Silver's tricks, the Immunity still wanted revenge for Dominick's return. Immunity beat Dominick down in a 3-on-1 handicap match last week. With Susan showing her compassion for the weakened tree man, Skar hated seeing this. He hated seeing his sister fall for Dominick's actions. With the siblings and Silver being taken out by Immunity, can the family trust Dominick Silver? Enter Susan. Worried about her brother's safety, Susan needs to worry for her own. She enters alone, fully aware of Immunity's future shenanigans. Enter Angel. The princess enters by herself, giggling at what Immunity clearly have planned. Match 5, Susan vs. Angel. Angel tries her best to avoid the sinister sibling, only for Susan to quickly destroy her. Sizing the Immunity member up for the revival kick, Bobby and Jerry attack the sister to cause a disqualification. Winner, Susan, by disqualification. Angel recovers after the match and talks trash to her opponent, acting as though she is untouchable. With Bobby and Jerry holding Susan in the corner, the sister headbutts the annoying Angel and escapes Immunity's clutches, allowing her to inflict more pain. Bobby, Jerry, and Angel are grounded in pain, allowing Susan to scream with intensity, taking on her rivals by herself. However, she has forgotten about one man. Enter Charlie Finch. Finch enters alone on stage with the familiar-looking religious book. He tells Susan that she can beat his Immunity team up all she wants, but he will not be beaten. He will win, and he will get what he wants. Rochelle's soul will return to her body, and all will return to normal. Holding up the book, Finch claims that Skar may refuse to read the text, and he himself may be unable to read the foreign language, but there is one man that can. One man that can, and one man that will. Enter Dominick Silver. Dominick enters dragging the lifeless Skar beside him with the cloth still attached to his mouth. The tree man has clearly intoxicated Skar with chloroform. Almost more disturbing than that, Dominick has seemed to align himself with Charlie Finch. Finch walks his new pet down to the ring where Susan produces tears. Finch struts with cockiness as he speaks to the saddened Susan. She should have convinced her brother sooner that Dominick was asking for peace. She should have convinced him that Dominick returned to simply belong, to be a part of a family. But it looks as though Skar's weakness and stubborn little mind just had to play the protector once again. As Finch is followed into the ring by the Tree Man, he tells Dominick that this is his family. In the immunity family, he doesn't need to prove himself, as he has already shown how strong he is by taking their beatings. Finch promises his new immunity member that in the immunity community, he will not be questioned by anyone anymore. Immunity and Dominick then stand in the ring together, facing the lone sister. Finch welcomes Dominick to the family and hands him the book, ready for him to read and perform the ritual. Dominick then throws the lifeless body of Skar in front of Susan. Walking back toward his new family, Dominick gets turned around by the crying Susan, asking why he has performed this horrible act. Refusing to hear it, Dominick clutches Susan's mouth with the cloth filled with chloroform. The sister is helpless and flies her arms in the air wildly and continues to do so almost comedically. Dominick slowly lets go of the grip, eventually releasing the cloth from Susan's mouth. Susan is fine. She remains standing. She then gets a big whiff of the toxins, which causes no effect. Dominick then smells the cloth himself as much as he can, and again, it has no effect. A confused and angry Finch snatches the cloth away, sniffs it himself, and is furious to find out that there's nothing on it. It has no smell. Then, Skar raises up, next to his sister and former rival. The whole thing has been a setup. Immunity stand with fear as Skar, Susan and Silver have united. Dominick holds up the book and rips it to shreds, signaling the end of his unity with immunity. Finch is furious and orders his team to attack. Immunity trade punches with Skar, Susan and Dominick, only to be outpowered by the new unit. Skar hits the body slam on Bobby. Susan hits the resurrection on Jerry, allowing the siblings to watch their new ally of Dominick Silver, yes, their new ally of Dominick Silver, hit the package pile driver on Finch. With immunity broken, Angel storms back in the ring to complain, only to cop a revival kick by the sister. With immunity down, Skar and Silver stare at one another for a while, until forming a handshake. Dominick hugs the elated Susan. The family have arrived. Still to come on this intense episode of Impetus, Greg Williams will take on Terri Delighta. The stylist wants revenge. However, up next, Steven Dreadful takes on Freddy Cornell. However, before that match takes place, Chris Vortex is seen wandering around the backstage hallway. He's asking multiple members of staff where his security guard is. The vegan is crying about his embarrassing loss and hopes to find his partner soon. However, he crashes into the president of Impetus, Vipernip. The boss tells Chris that he looks terrible, almost as bad as his win-loss record. With Chris sobbing, Vipernip tells him that it looks like they need to have a talk. Vipernip tells Chris to get cleaned up and enjoy the next week as much as he can, because next week, Chris and Vipernip are going to have a little talk. A talk about Chris's career. Vipernip leaves with Chris in agony. Impetus returns to air with the entrance of Steven Dreadful, of course, accompanied by CJ. Furious with what happened earlier, Steven is calmed down thanks to his good friend CJ. With Steven ready for his challenge, a replay from earlier tonight is seen. Highlights of earlier's Fatal 4-Way Elimination matches shown, with KOTR hoping to use their shenanigans in order for Gary Federline to win the match. Wazzy D pulled off a victory, becoming the new #1 contender to the Coast to Coast title. With KOTR's plans failing, can Steven Dreadful get revenge? Enter Freddy Cornell. Laughing at the Killers of the Revolution's failure from earlier tonight, Freddy wipes happy tears from his eyes, irritating CJ and Steven even more. As Josh prepares to enter the ring, he gets ambushed by Gary Federline. Hoping to regain their dominance, KOTR beat up Josh in the ring. They hit a huge double team move, a side suplex combined with a neckbreaker. With Freddy in pain, he is thrown into the ropes, allowing Steven to hit the Arrival. KOTR stand tall over Freddy, only to retreat once again at the sight of Josh Alba bolting to the ring. CJ leads his team up the ramp with a smirk as the Essentials recover in anger. The chaos of Impetus then slows down as we head into a backstage interview in the interview area with Wazzy D. Moments after winning the fatal 4-way match from earlier tonight, Wazzy D is introduced as the new challenger to the Coast to Coast Championship. An elated Wazzy D is seen, in a little pain of course, and is asked how he feels. Who it is and what it be, it's your boy, Wazzy D. The interviewer is just as hyped as Wazzy D, but asks how he is feeling without his good friend and tag team partner, Barry the Bogan, not being able to witness the match in person at Hunt You Down. Wazzy is then deflated. Way to ruin the mood, guy. Wazzy is through with negative emotions. He's allowed friendships to stand between him and success once and won't let it happen a second time. By no means is he forgetting the old Bazzy boy, as he is deciding to dedicate his title match to Barry the Bogan at Hunt You Down. He hopes he can do what Barry didn't do, and that's take advantage of this huge opportunity. Wazzy is then stopped by the appearance of Warren Jaxon. Jaxon sniggers and asks Wazzy how it feels for him now to have his interview be interrupted. You see, Warren noticed something while watching the match tonight. It wasn't the fact that Wazzy was saved from defeat thanks to a quick roll-up, or even won the match with a quick roll-up. It wasn't the fact that Wazzy got distracted by trying to dive on someone else not even involved in the match. And it wasn't even the fact that he didn't even look at the Coast to Coast champion, the champion that he will be facing at Hunt You Down while celebrating. No, it's the fact that Wazzy D couldn't quite get the Coast to Coast. He tried. 2 times, in fact, to gain the Coast to Coast, but he just couldn't get it. Warren scoffs at the irony, claiming that Wazzy just can't get the Coast to Coast finisher, just like he can't get a hold of the Coast to Coast title. Warren and Wazzy stand nose to nose, ready for Hunt You Down in 2 weeks. Up next, Greg Williams versus Terri Delighta. The stylist wants his revenge, and he's gonna get it in the main event. That is up next. Returning to air for the final time of the evening, the Hunt You Down pay-per-view is advertised before the main event. At Hunt You Down, the Coast to Coast Championship will be on the line as Warren Jaxon defends his title against Wazzy D. And, just announced, Immunity take on The Family. Susan, Skar and Silver team for the first time ever. Also, the women's title is on the line as Daria defends her gold against Akira. And also, just announced, the Essentials versus the Killers of the Revolution. Also, the World Impetus Championship is on the line as Greg Williams defends the gold against Johnny Fabuloso. The question is, will Johnny Fabuloso be able to even compete with braces? The show then gives us a replay from last week, reminding us of the Johnny Fabuloso World Impetus Championship opportunity. With Johnny undoing the second turnbuckle cover, he eventually got his head smashed into it, causing his mouth to bleed, requiring braces and a night off. Enter Terri Delighta. Terri comes dressed in street fight clothes. Despite the fact that this is clearly not a street fight, it does seem as though Terri is serious about sending a message to Greg. Enter Greg Williams. A little confused by the rage in Terri's eyes, Greg accepts this random match and is happy to compete. Main event, match 6, Greg Williams versus Terri Delighta. Greg toys with Terri for a large portion of the match. For example, Terri tries a lockup, only for Greg to put in very little effort, with Terri running on the spot, trying his darndest to seem powerful. With Terri slapping Greg in the face, Greg slaps him back instantly, turning Terri around and leaning over in pain. From this, Greg slaps his butt, mocking the Delightful One. With Terri embarrassed, he demands respect. Greg plays along and allows Terri a free shot to the face, putting his hands behind his back. Terri thinks and tightens his fist, only to strike the champion down with a huge enziguri to the skull. With Greg stumbling, Terri chucks the rebel to the outside, clubbing the back of the stunned champion. With Terri now gloating his awesome power to the fans, he turns back to see Greg stare a hole through his soul. Greg shakes off the kick and tells Terri that he's a dead man. Petrified, Terri slowly makes his way to the timekeeper's area and grabs his trusty hairspray, threatening to use it on Greg, much like pepper spray. Noting the dangerous environment, Greg looks under the ring for a weapon to defend himself. However, he pulls out a can of his own, a can of whipped cream? With both men now threatening the other with the deadly weapons, Terri is confused as to what cream will actually do to him. Greg then has more fun, squirting the cream on his nipples and then his mouth. With Terri disgusted at this, he hopes to halt the dirtiness as he looks to spray the face of the rebel. However, Greg dodges, slaps the spray out of Terri's hand and grabs him by the back of the head. The champion leans Terri backwards, almost like a romantic dance move. However, Greg holds tightly to Terri's face and squirts the whipped cream in his mouth. With Terri's mouth full, he gets no time to swallow it as he is chucked into the ring and gets hit instantly with the scrutiny. Terri spits cream everywhere and falls to the ground, allowing Greg to cover for the win. Winner, Greg Williams. As Greg mocks his opponent while exiting, the pay-per-view is advertised. Hunt You Down, episode 116 will host the World Impetus Championship match between Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso. With Greg seen on stage, he has his title held high in one hand and the whipped cream in the other. He squirts some on his title and licks it off, having fun as the show ends. However, Johnny Fabuloso attacks Greg from behind, dropping him to the floor. Johnny refuses to speak, not wanting anybody to see what lays in his mouth. He then grabs the dropped title with fury and smacks it in the face of the champion. Johnny yells at the fallen Greg with rage, covering his lips with his hands. Greg is then seen busted open, allowing Johnny to punch the wounds up open even more. With blood-stained hands, Johnny raises the title and then drops it, leaving the show with intensity.